Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Megan Quinn with the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality's Office of Pollution Prevention and Vice Chair of the National Pollution Prevention Roundtable. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This webinar is part of NPPR's Leadership and Voluntary Programs Workgroup to highlight how these programs are used to support P2 efforts. Today, we have two speakers presenting on award programs. And we'll just jump right into our speakers. But first, I did want to note that I've muted all participants. If you have a question, please use the chat feature or unmute yourself during the question and answer time. I am going to switch the controls over to our first speaker as I introduce her. Okay. Our first presenter is Christina Campo. Christina has been part of the Pollution Prevention Unit at the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for the past 5 years. She holds a bachelor's degree in natural resource management and a master's degree in environmental studies. Christina works on many different P2 and sustainability related tasks, but her main roles are the co-management of the Hazardous Waste Reduction Planning Program and now the co-management of the Environmental Excellence Award Program. Christina recently took over co-leadership of the awards program. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, Megan. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, and thanks everyone for tuning in to this portion of the webinar, which will cover the Environmental Excellence Awards Program. And this awards program is administered by the Pollution Prevention Unit at the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And for the past 17 years or so, the program was administered and managed by another individual, but as of the beginning of this year, it is now being co-managed by myself and another co-worker by the name of Tim Kirchgraber. And for our agenda today, we will go over the application process. We'll go over eligible applicants. We'll go over any impacts related to the COVID-19 crisis. We'll go over any examples we have of awarded projects, previous winners, a few examples of those, and the benefits of receiving an Environmental Excellence Award. So our eligible projects, the criteria for that includes that the eligible projects must be located in New York State. They must have been initiated within the past 3 years and have been fully operational for at least a year. We will consider longer term projects, but the applications must focus on new and measurable environmental benefits that were achieved within the past 3 years. The project must have been submitted by an applicant who is in good standing with our environmental conservation laws and any pertinent local laws, if applicable. Their compliance history will also be considered. The application must be submitted in our required format and include documented metrics. The application must be submitted by an applicant who agrees to allow a summary of their accomplishments to be published. And the applicant must be in good standing with DEC and in full compliance with the environmental conservation law currently and for the previous 3 years. They shall also not be involved in any litigation against DEC or with the state of New York within the past 7 years. For the application requirements, they must complete an application cover sheet and application checklist, and that is available on our website in PDF format, so they just have to fill that out and include it with their application. They must include an application narrative, which is not to exceed 10 pages. It must include, the narrative itself must include an executive summary, the project description, sections that include innovation, sustainability, and partnerships, superior practices, measurable environmental, economic, and social benefits, their commitment and leadership in pursuit of environmental excellence, the transferability of their project to other users, their funding sources, and any other details they'd like to include, including supplemental or supporting information such as photos, maps, diagrams, press clips, or letters, if they'd like to include that. It's not required, but we do welcome it. Also, an applicant can submit multiple projects for consideration, but they must use a separate application for each of the projects. And then for the application review criteria, all the applications are subject to an eligibility review. Also, they are subject to a technical review and a compliance review, if applicable. And all of these reviews are mostly conducted by DEC staff. The applications are evaluated by a statewide review panel with members representing businesses, academia, government, and non-government organizations. So the review process includes an assessment of many criteria. The project must have achieved significant and measurable environmental, economic, and social benefits that are documented by quantified metrics. The project must improve, protect, or make significant contributions to the sustainability of New York State's natural resources, or provide an improved quality of life. And these improvements must be documented by metrics. The project should involve unique or creative partnerships. The project should demonstrate outstanding creativity or innovation, or introduce new approaches. The project applicant should demonstrate leadership in their field or sector. The project should clearly demonstrate how the project or program goes beyond standard techniques or regulatory compliance standards. The project should be environmentally sound and economically feasible. And the applicant should share information about the project so that others can achieve and contribute to the environmental benefits that are already achieved. The applicant should also be prepared to explain how the project can serve as a model for other successful projects. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has honored 92 winners since 2004. Winners have included entrepreneurs competing in global markets, large businesses which have been recognized for initiating comprehensive corporate commitments to sustainability, building high-performance buildings, initiating pollution prevention and water conservation projects, installing geothermal cooling systems, product stewardship and sustainable manufacturing. Some examples that small businesses have been honored for are implementing innovative green technologies and pollution prevention programs, operating innovative reuse programs, inspiring the hospitality industry to reduce its carbon footprint, demonstrating that innovative design does not necessarily translate to higher costs. Some of our nonprofit organizations have been leaders by promoting rainwater harvesting, working with the agricultural community to make their farming operations a little bit more green, implementing greener retrofits to be more environmentally and energy efficient, and protecting natural areas from the negative impacts of non-native and invasive species. Some of our educational institutions, universities, and school districts that have been recognized for reducing the ecological footprint of their facilities include developing energy efficiency programs such as collecting and reusing solvents in laboratories, empowering students to be leaders of environmental stewardship, and engaging students and administrators in impressive sustainable practices such as on-site organic gardening for cafeteria food. We also recognize governments and municipalities. Some of them have demonstrated leadership in investing in green infrastructure, in creating comprehensive recycling partnerships, creating intermunicipal stormwater coalitions, creating cost-effective food waste composting programs, and initiating pharmaceutical collection programs. So due to New York State being on pause since about mid-March, we have made a few modifications to the way we are handling the Environmental Excellence Awards program. Some of these modifications have already been implemented, while others remain tentative based on the future of the COVID-19 crisis and its impacts on New York State government. We have extended the due date for applicants from April 17th to May 15th of this year. We are planning on using teleconference to meet with our internal review committee as well as our external review committee. The internal review committee is comprised of our subject matter experts from a variety of divisions within New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And these experts represent persons that are in air quality, water quality, fish and wildlife, lands and forests, environmental remediation, and communications. Other experts within DEC may be tapped if needed. The External Review Committee represents outside experts, including previous award winners. Both committees evaluate the applications in concert with technical reviewers within DEC that are given the opportunity to review applications as well, so that the entire review process remains rigorous and diverse. The state of New York remains the hardest hit state by COVID-19, and therefore our funding for this year is restricted. Due to potential limitations on funding and social gatherings in the fall, we are working on ways to perform the in-person award ceremony event over a webinar, so long as our award winners can participate. We think that this will actually provide an additional benefit to our awardees because we think we will be able to have more attendees over webinar than we would be able to invite to an in-person event. This will allow our awardees to spread the news of their projects even farther. Having a webinar also avoids the added greenhouse gas emissions from having people travel to a venue. It will also help us to avoid the associated costs of renting the venue and the food that is normally provided. We are still hoping that we will have the funds to be able to provide our awardees with an actual trophy. In the past, we have purchased sustainable trophies made of recycled glass and hope to be able to do the same again this year if the budget allows. So we've honored a variety of projects in the past. As you see in the photo here, one of our projects is a solar wall, which was installed at the Mother Clara Hale Bus Depot. That's in New York City, and that was an awardee in 2016. We've awarded projects that are based on waste reduction and composting, manufacturing process improvements, projects centered around greenhouse gas emissions reductions, projects that provide green technology solutions, clean energy projects and energy efficiency improvements, sustainability projects. Those can be at businesses, farms, schools, etc. Sustainable forestry and farming practices, and education and engagement programs. Here's some examples of previous winners. In 2014, Columbia University was awarded for implementing a multifaceted, comprehensive on-site solvent recycling program. In 13 years, the program resulted in more than 45,000 gallons of solvents being recycled, with a cost savings of about $3 million. Columbia University is achieving environmental successes, reducing costs, and improving the health of its campus community. This triple bottom line approach establishes a model for universities and laboratories. In 2004, the Battery Park City Authority was awarded for a multifaceted effort that resulted in the development of cutting-edge environmental guidelines, construction and maintenance of an innovative pocket park called Teardrop Park, and the construction of an outstanding high-performance building called the Solaire. The environmental residential guidelines addressed 5 categories: energy efficiency, enhanced indoor environmental quality, conserving materials and resources, operations and maintenance, and water conservation and site management. Using these guidelines, developers have been improving overall building energy performance, reducing operating costs, and addressing the environmental impact associated with energy consumption. These guidelines paved the way for design and construction of the Solaire, which was the first residential building in the United States that adhered to open space and green building requirements. In 2016, the Fashion Institute of Technology, otherwise known as FIT, installed more than 17,000 square feet of pre-vegetated green roof material on multiple campus buildings in 2014. Overall, the system has netted impressive results, including 300 kilograms of carbon dioxide removed from the atmosphere per year, a 2% decrease in electricity consumption, the potential to divert an estimated 300,000 gallons of runoff from the sewer system annually, a habitat for 34 bird species, including hummingbirds, warblers, sparrows, doves, mockingbirds, falcons, and 4 bat species, 2 of which are migratory. It also provides the annual oxygen intake requirement for approximately 850 people. Students also built a natural dye garden into the roof system with a goal to develop plants that have the potential to reduce or replace synthetic dyes. And in 2015, a muslin composting system was installed, and the resulting compost acts to feed the soil on the green roof system. And you can read more examples of previous winners on our website. There's a couple links here in the slide, and also our website has numerous case studies as well. What are the benefits of receiving an award? You'll have increased visibility as a sector and as a community leader. Receiving an award helps to advance your organization's mission. It helps your organization to network. You'll have increased marketing opportunities and the potential for increased sales and increased exposure, as you can see here in this Lakeshore News article. So our application period has now been closed for 13 days. However, we are always on the lookout for potential applicants for the next year. So if anyone on this webinar is aware of a New York State-based entity that would qualify for an Environmental Excellence Award, please let us know. You can email me at the email address on this slide. You can let me know in the chat. and that would be great. Just remember that an Environmental Excellence Award is good for the economy, good for people, and good for the environment. Thank you very much for tuning in to my presentation on the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Environmental Excellence Awards program. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Thanks.
Thank you, Christina. Does anyone have any questions for Christina? It looks like there might have been some in the chat. How many are awarded each year, and what are your judging criteria?
So there's no set number for the amount of people that are awarded. It's usually under 10 people, or rather entities. Usually individuals are not awarded. Usually it's more like organizations. I think we've had as little as 4 and maybe as much as 10. And there is a lot of criteria that we look for, but a major component is that we're looking to see that the applicant has documented metrics. So they need to be able to show in numbers that what they are doing is showing that they are making some sort of significant improvement to the quality of the environment and creating a sustainable project in some way, shape, or form. And usually, we would want to see at least a year's worth of that data. 3 years is better, but if it's something that's a really strong project, 1 year can be acceptable. And we want to see that they're, they have a lot of partnerships, that their project can be transferred to other users, and that what they're doing goes above and beyond, a regulatory requirement, that they're a leader in their sector, a leader in their field, they're innovative. What they're doing is kind of a superior sort of practice. They're creative, and they're kind of, they have this sort of commitment toward environmental excellence. They're not really being driven by a funding source or DEC kind of telling them that they need to go out and do something better for the environment. They're just sort of intrinsically kind of self-motivated to go above and beyond to do something good for the environment. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, but metrics is a really big one for us.
There is a follow-up to that question asking if all applicants that are eligible to be awarded are win an award.
So applicants that are eligible to be awarded don't necessarily win an award. They have to go through a rigorous review process, and it kind of goes through a lot of people. Like one application is looked at by probably anywhere from 5 to 10 people with various different backgrounds. I mean, oftentimes it goes through experts in the field, our attorneys, our executive staff. So if there are any issues with the application from any sort of perspective on DEC's end, then it might not be, necessarily eligible from a perspective of one of our subject matter experts. So it won't necessarily be awarded if it's eligible just based on the application requirements.
Okay. There was another question about where you order the glass awards from. People have been having trouble finding them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can find that information. I don't have it offhand as I have not ordered them myself yet. But I can certainly look into that and follow up with whomever. If that person would like to send me an email, I can find out and get back to them if that's okay.
Sure. I think
Okay,
someone
great.
else had asked for a copy of the slides, and I am recording the webinar, so that'll be posted, and maybe I can put some resources about where some manufacturers or facilities that sell the awards have them. I know we've purchased them in the past as well. Right, there were a few more questions, but I think I'm going to let our second speaker present, and then we can come back to some of the other questions, and there might be some overlap for the questions for Christina and Mike. So,
Okay, great.
I'm going to pass the controls to Mike, and then I'll read his bio as he gets set up. So they should be on their way to you, Mike. So our second speaker today is Mike Kelley, who has coordinated Ohio EPA's pollution prevention program since its inception in 1993. Before that, he completed hazardous waste minimization activities since his start at Ohio EPA in 1988. He co-founded the Great Lakes P2 Roundtable, participated in the formation of NPPR, and provided input and advice on the development of the Federal Pollution Prevention Act of 1990. His duties include developing P2-related energy efficiency programs, P2 voluntary programs, P2 measurement, and integrating P2 into federal and state legislation. Mike received a bachelor's degree in geology from Miami University in 1985 and a master's degree in geology from Eastern Kentucky University in 1992. Welcome, Mike. Mike, I think you need to unmute yourself. I'm having trouble doing it myself.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, there we
I
go.
got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Like in the short of it, I've been around a long time. I'm kind of getting old. But anyways, I'm here to talk about Ohio's encouraging environmental excellence award program. This is about the fourth iteration of our prior governor's P2 awards. And, one of the big things that we always push on P2 is continuous improvement. And I have a big focus on trying to make sure that we do that ourselves, with our programs. And what we've tried to do with this is not only kind of incorporate some of the voluntary P2 planning aspects that we've done in the past, but also technical assistance. One of the questions that Christina got was, does everybody who's eligible get an award? We try and do that. We spend a lot of time working with companies who might, we've got different levels of this program. We spend a lot of time working with companies to try and provide them technical assistance to kind of get their scores better, suggest things they can do, bring them back into the cycle, a year or two or three afterwards. Because the whole point of doing these is to kind of put these folks on a pedestal and go, hey, everybody should be doing what these folks are doing. And, fortunately, over time, it's worked. It's taken some time, but we're getting there. Before I dive into the slides, I just want to apologize. I live 5 miles from Wright Pat Air Force Base, and we had a round of thunderstorms this morning, and we've got another one set coming here this evening. So we have big C-17 transport planes that fly right over my house. If you hear that, and it's also Thursday in Ohio, which means it's grass cutting day, and I just heard my neighbors fire up their mower. So if you hear anything in the background, that's what it is. So anyways. Okay. Today's presentation is going to be based on, I'm going to provide an overview of our E3 or Encouraging Environmental Excellence program, talk about the levels and benefits, go quickly through the application process, provide some examples as I do that, talk about how we evaluate applications, and then I'll end up with some contact information. So for the program overview, the E3 program recognizes those who reduce waste, improve efficiency, and work continuously to improve as an environmental steward. And we use the term environmental stewardship just because before the whole sustainability thing came on big time back in the late, about 2005, 6, we were kind of using that term to be a little more all-encompassing. A lot of the smaller companies we've worked with don't, like pollution prevention, okay. So you'll hear me talk about environmental stewardship, and that's just because we chose to use that because it's a bit more comprehensive. The program is open to most organizations, and that could be professional organizations, trade associations, obviously businesses, local governments, and others. It has 4 levels: achievement, silver, gold, and platinum. And one of the things, I'll make sure I get my slides to, like Megan, who can, because this is like a, our website is kind of like our main hub for this program, and we have everything about how we evaluate, review, all the criteria, examples of prior awardees, and all that on our website. So I'm going to focus primarily on the silver, gold, and platinum levels, but I want to start out with just a little overview of the achievement level to kind of, show you kind of, this is kind of like the entry level, if you will. The interesting thing is when we were doing Governor's Pollution Prevention Awards back in like around 92, 93, what companies would do to get a governor's award is just going to get them into the achievement level now. And we've got 3 other tiers you have to do more stuff for it. So that just gives you some kind of indication of how things have improved over the past 20 years. The benefits of being recognized at the achievement level include an E3 decal, like on the slide, a certificate of recognition signed by the director of Ohio EPA, a listing on our website, and a highlight of their activities in one of our publications. They ask that they include their contact information, a description of their operations, a narrative discussing their accomplishments. That's a big thing about our program. We're not interested in what you plan to do, or if you've got some, corporate sustainability type initiative that you're striving towards. We focus purely on accomplishments. What have you gotten done? And that's a little different than some award programs in other states. We have 15 environmental stewardship criteria, and to get the achievement level, you have to show some significant progress at 1, and then acknowledge that you're making some progress in 5 of the other 15. Achievement level is a little different. You can apply for that at any time, where we have an annual application process for silver, gold, and platinum. The silver, gold, and platinum benefits include an E3 flag that we've, that we will actually come out in some places. We either send it to the company or to the organization, or we'll actually go out and do like a flag raising ceremony in some situations. We issue a news release with, for new recipients and identify them on our webpage. And we recognize the recipients during an award ceremony and our site visit by our director. Gold and platinum level benefits include everything you get for silver, enhanced environmental assistance. We try and make this more like a partnership relationship. Because we're part of the compliance assistance and pollution prevention part of Ohio EPA, we've got kind of a direct line to our, director's office. And what's interesting is that our former director, Craig Butler, started out as one of our interns in our P2 program, and our current director, Lori Stevenson, was the chief of our office before he became director. We've got a pretty tight relationship. We've helped, we always encourage the environmental stewardship aspect of things, but if you've got compliance concerns, questions, we can help that too. We recognize the recipients, or we have a platinum level ceremony at the location for people that reach that level, and then there's a specific platinum level flag they get also. Again, the application review process, I'm real big on transparency. We put everything from our rating criteria to the steps that we take to review everything on our website. You know, the application instructions are on the website. It can be downloaded as a PDF file. They contain the definitions and what reviewers we have review teams that we'll be looking for. The applications can be completed, submitted online, or sent by email to us, whatever is easier for the applicant. The online application is a structured format that prompts the applicant to address each of the criteria. They can also use the online application to generate a Word file if they want to work on it kind of while they're not in the actual app. If an organization has a format that works better for them, we'll accept that. We try to be as accommodating as possible. And also, they can attach pretty much anything they want to the online app. And applicants can contact us at any time if they have questions and are interested. One of the debates that we get into is like, well, are we writing the application for them? And my philosophy has always been, well, that's what it takes. You know what I mean? I mean, we're not making up the stuff that we're doing. If we see it, if we observe it, then it's just a matter of getting the right words on a page. After the application is turned in, a review team of 3 to 4 staff will review the application and contact the organization if they have questions or if additional information is needed. We also offer to go to a location prior to them submitting an application and basically help them put an application together. That's the technical assistance portion of the Environmental Excellence Program. This is kind of a screenshot of our webpage. As you can see, we have each of the 4 levels kind of listed out, prior award winners. We kind of go to the point of repeating information sometimes just to make sure that it's easy to get to. Again, everything is focused on trying to make this as user-friendly as possible. And understanding that, Ohio, at least, and in most states, you have, Fortune 500 companies and 4 or 5 people, auto body shops that might be applying for this. We direct everyone to our webpage, and like I said, the 4 different tabs, provide examples. That's something we ask for a lot. Hey, I'm a dry cleaner. I've been doing some good stuff. Do you have any examples that I can use? Each award level tab, achievement, silver, gold, and platinum, has a link to the application instructions. They're indicated here in a purple box. And we also have a link to the online application. We want applicants to tell us a story of how their organization promotes environmental stewardship. However, we also want concrete examples of what has been achieved at the facility. So we try and find that happy balance. We ask applicants to introduce their organization, explain what its mission is, what services it provides, and or what it manufactures. The silver, gold, or platinum narrative needs to have supporting data. We're real big on numbers. Illustrating activities that are described in the narrative. The main thing we emphasize, like I said before, is what the organization is. We focus on the organization's environmental stewardship activities at the facility level. If you have a corporate sustainability plan or something of that nature, what are you doing at that location to implement it? Information on how the organization meets our environmental stewardship criteria is also needed. Although the review team has some pretty substantial technical backgrounds, it's important to provide this information in a way that the team can understand it. If an organization is applying for platinum, they need to address 6 additional social, sustainability, and community criteria. Discuss how they have expanded their environmental stewardship initiatives into the surrounding community and or region. We encourage applicants to address as many of the 15 criteria as they can. Obviously, some folks are doing better in some areas than others, but we found that the more criteria they address, the higher their score is. Okay, the level of recognition recommended by the review team depends upon the number of criteria addressed and how well they are addressed. We got a 6-point scale, 0 to 5. You got to score 3 points or higher on a criteria for it to be considered as doing relatively well. So for the silver level, you got to score well on 5 of the 15. For gold level, you need to score well on 12 of the 15. Now, to explain what that 3 means, each environmental stewardship criteria is reviewed on the parameters shown here and given a score from 0 to 5, like I mentioned, based on the information in the application. Each of these parameters parameters is 1 point for the reviewer. Activities described need to go beyond what is required by environmental regulations and demonstrate that it is environmental stewardship. Reviewers need enough information so that they can understand the benefits of an activity. Having supporting numerical data as part of the summary is needed to get the 3 score mentioned earlier. Additional points are earned if the practice described is comprehensive and holistic across the facility and is innovative for that organizational sector. If the organization has ideas that are innovative, we ask that they make sure to explain what is the norm for their sector, how they surpass it. And you know, you get tired of hearing me say this. All of this is on the E3 webpage. So with that, here are the actual environmental stewardship criteria. We loosely categorize these into 4 groups. This is the first group, organizational leadership. It includes management commitment, employee involvement, continuous improvement, and innovation. The other 3 groups include environmental impact, economics, and outreach. These first 4 criteria allow an organization to showcase how it is a leader in environmental stewardship. The organization should describe the human elements and management systems that are used to continuously improve its environmental performance. We encourage applicants to share with us how their organization is innovative compared to others in the same sector, and what technologies they're using to be innovative. As an example, American Municipal Power has a pretty stellar management, upper management commitment activities going on at their various locations. They adopted 7 sustainability principles for the company, and once implemented, the employee involvement and stewardship standard, and AMP began publishing a quarterly newsletter and created a corporate responsibility engagement team to expand their commitments, and a lot of good work with communities. The next 2 slides cover the 9 environmental performance measures. Environmental performance criteria may overlap, or in some activities might address, multiple criteria. That can't be helped. In those cases, we ask the applicant to describe the projects in the different criteria sections and provide enough detail that reviewers will be able to score the activities appropriately. If there's some redundancy in that or some overlap, that's given. The rest of the environmental performance measures cover green building, stormwater management, composting, and renewable energy. Kent State University has created an innovative approach to recycling. They provide a year-long fabric take-back program where the collected materials are displayed in an academic showcase. These fabrics are then sent to an organization that uses them to make bags and other smaller products. In addition, Kent State has great stormwater management and green infrastructure practices. These include permeable parking lots, green roofs, bioretention swales, and both biodetention and retention ponds. The last 2 criteria are economic benefits and how an organization shares their efforts with customers, competitors, and communities. Those who apply for platinum recognition need to be at or at least recommended for the E3 gold level. New applicants need to address the 15 environmental stewardship criteria and also address 6 additional questions explaining how they are taking their environmental stewardship programs and expanding it to support the community and region. A separate platinum review team will make recommendations to the director, and the director of Ohio EPA will make the final determination. These are the 6 community and regional sustainability criteria. Platinum level applicant will need to provide information that addresses these and provide more details about these criteria. These are all kind of defined, explained on our website, and the community and regional criteria use a different 6-point scale when being evaluated by the platinum review team than what we use for the main 15 environmental stewardship criteria. Here's the 5 parameters used to score the community and regional criteria. The reviewers are looking for details and numbers, accomplishments again. In addition, they are assessing if the activities are diverse and comparing the depth and quality of the information. Each criterion is scored on a 0 to 5 scale based on these parameters, and the evaluation methodology again is detailed. Platinum tab on our webpage. Community education is a priority at like YSI. Employees spent over 140 hours labeling storm drains to create public awareness of stormwater runoff pollution in their community. In addition, the company publishes a quarterly newsletter entitled Mission, Water Magazine, and regularly blogs to the Water blog. They're a Xylem brand, and they've showcased great support for the surrounding communities by creating grant and charitable donations. In addition, they take great pride in volunteering with community groups. Now I want to finish up with a summary of the application review process. Upon receiving an application, we create a review team with a lead reviewer. The review team will evaluate the application, scoring each of the 15 criteria and identify areas that may need improvement. The lead reviewer may contact the applicant with questions. As this is an award from Ohio EPA, all applicants have to be in good standing with Ohio EPA's environmental regulations. We check compliance status as part of gathering background information, and we consider being in compliance as a baseline requirement. The E3 program recognizes those who go above and beyond compliance. So after the initial review is complete, the review team will arrange for a site visit to those that qualify. The purpose of the site visit is for the review team to improve their understanding of the operation and address any gaps identified. The final score of the application is compiled after the site visit, and in almost every case, the site visit improves the score of the applicant. Again, we work with the applicant throughout the process to make the application as strong as possible. Our aim is to get the applicant the highest possible score. The last step of the process is for the review team to put together a recommendation for our director. And then the director makes a final determination on which organizations get recognized by the, at like what levels. For the platinum level evaluation, platinum candidates must be recommended for at least the gold level and have to meet all the requirements that any gold level like recipient before they will be promoted by the technical review team to the platinum review team. Evaluating an application, the reviewers will assess the application and the 6 criteria that address the community and sustainability criteria that I showed you before. And with that, here are the contacts. I handle most of the achievement because I direct kind of our technical assistance efforts. So that way, if those folks need additional help, which many of them do, like we can provide that. Bill Naratsky, he handles, he's been at Ohio EPA for 28 years. He handles most of the silver and gold. Frank Basting, who's been in our program for about 15 years, 16 years, and has been at the agency much longer. He kind of swoops in and helps where needed. He kind of helps with like the platinum level on a lot of different stuff. But just because of our backgrounds and experience, we kind of hop back and forth if needed. We are almost in a situation to where, for like the Honda facilities, Bill has a good relationship with that. Crown Equipment, which has about half a dozen facilities kind of in West Central Ohio. I've been working with them for 20 years. I kind of handle that kind of stuff. So we kind of pass it back. And with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Mike. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or enter it into the chat box and I can read it out. I have a question that it could be for either Mike or Christina about the compliance reviews. Have you ever had any issues where it's been a corporate facility or there's a lot of facilities under the same corporation and they're trying to get recognized at one facility but having compliance issues at another, and there's concern over just the lead name on that would be awarded, even if it's not directly associated with and how that's handled?
Yes, we do, and that's why I this is Mike from Ohio. Yes, we've had that situation a few times, and basically, and it goes to what we call the sniff test, which is at the end of the day, these awards are handed out by our director, The director is ultimately responsible for them. The director has to decide what level of heat they're willing to take from the press based upon compliance concerns or even non-environmental compliance concerns in other parts of the state or the country. For example, we had one of our power companies who did a gold level green building, massive recycling, you know, everything you possibly could do to an office structure, not get an award because they were killing, it was basically what we called fish impingement. Their intake at one of their power plants up near Toledo was killing a whole lot of fish. And it was a big press brouhaha. So they decided not to give them an award. It had nothing to do with anything regulated Ohio EPA.
And we've had some similar instances where it's unrelated to you know, the project or the particular facility. And it does, we seem to use the sniff test as well. We want to make sure we're implementing it evenly year to year.
Ours is very director dependent. Our prior director was just kind of like, hey, you know, if I can explain it, that you're making, you know, you're fighting a good fight, making a good effort, I'm willing to go with it. The director before that was squeaky clean. If there's anything, they're not getting it. It just depends.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Christina or Mike? Is that someone else unmuting themselves? No. Okay. If anyone else has resources for where they purchase awards, whether it's the Recycled Glass Awards or another sustainable award, would you mind either putting that in the chat or sending it to me following the webinar? And when I post the recording, I'll put that up as a resource as well. I've already captured the ones that are in the chat right now. So thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. A special thank you to Christina and Mike for sharing their awards programs with us today. If you have ideas for future presentations, please let me know. I'm hoping to feature some programs that have incorporated climate mitigation, resiliency, and adaptation in some of the next webinars. So if you know of any programs who have done that well, please reach out and let me know, and I'll try to coordinate something with them. And I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. Have a good afternoon.